It's a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Andy Cleveland, the Accounts Receivable Ninja. He has been in the revenue cycle space for almost 20 years and has served a variety of capacities. He started working with dental practices on the collections floor, motivating difficult patients to pay on everything from hygiene visits to full mouth restorations. Learning the business from the ground up, he developed a proficiency in recovering lost revenue and rose to the top of his field. He realized his skill sets were better utilized working with practice owners, so he moved to the service side of the business. Currently, he consults with dentists and has partnered with numerous best-in-class service providers to help dentists optimize their accounts receivable process to ensure maximum profitability. Not only is it rewarding to help practices achieve greater efficiency, but improving key areas such as employee satisfaction and recare as well. He is a member of the Academy of Dental Management Consultants, ADMC, a creator of the Dental Resource Partners Educational Group, a speaker and consultant that enjoys specializing in the dental field. Andy, thanks for coming on my show today.
Howard, it's an honor to be here. We're meeting in the beginning of 2017, and the year has already been a great success, so thank you.
Yeah, and we lost a legend today. We lost Carl Mish. My, gosh darn, my heart's bleeding for that guy. He was probably Brandmark, Mish, the two biggest legends in implant dentistry, and so you gotta make this a pumped up deal to get me in the right frame of mind after losing a buddy, a mentor, a legend. So let's start with the account receivables. So do some of the old norms that they've been saying for 30 years that your account receivable should be no more than 1 month's production? How for my dentist driving to work right now, they're commuting for an hour drive to work. When they get to work, how can they check if their account receivables are an A, B, C, D, or they're failing the whole damn thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. One of the things that, I think all dentists should learn how to do is run an accounts receivable report in their software. A lot of folks depend on their office manager or delegate someone to do that for them. But if they could actually run the report and monitor that on a frequent basis, it really should be monitored, more frequently, the better, at least on a monthly basis. But if you're looking at it daily or weekly, if you're looking at it and you're talking to your team about it, then they're going to be looking at it. And just by that event alone, you're going to improve your receivables. Just by the Hawthorne effect. They know you're watching and they're watching.
That was awesome that you just mentioned the Hawthorne effect. That was a neat study back in the day. The guy thought these workers would work better if they gave more light. So he changed the lighting, and sure enough, it increased productivity. And then they thought, well, what's the control? So then they went to another place, and they actually lowered the lighting, and that increased their productivity. And what they figured out is that if you just pay attention to your workers and show them some love, that you care, that you're involved, that they get more engaged. Great callback to a great study. So on these reports, is there any practice management softwares you like better that do this better? Or are they all the same, or?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on practice management software, but most softwares can actually do it. And really, you want something that's going to break down, what's outstanding on insurance versus patient pay and start identifying trends. So actually doing it and looking at it and discussing it is probably the first and most important step.
So what would be the scorecard on this report? What would you like to see? You're the accounts receivable ninja.
Yeah, I mean, we can go with the traditional half months to a month's worth of production. That's kind of been the rule of thumb. However, I think each practice owner is a little bit different, Howard. I think each practice owner has their own level of their comfort with risk. And some, right, that is literally a bank account. That is money to be realized. And you obviously don't want all your money to be tied up in receivables. But let's say you have a bad month. Sometimes those receivables can carry you through some bad months. So I would say each practice owner would want to be judged that based on their comfort level with risk. If they really need the cash flow, they're going to want their numbers to be very low. If they're sitting on mountains of a cash, then they may want to take some chances and carry more AR. It's really at the comfort level of the practice owner.
I have a lot to do with how much risk you want to take. Some people Some people go get a job at a dental school for 4, 5, 6, 7 years before they get their student loans paid down enough and they feel
Yep.
that they can take this risk. I graduated May 11, 1987 and was open September 21. I mean, I went and dove in the swimming pool and had no idea how to swim.
Right.
But people do high risk behavior, account receivables, traveling abroad, getting married. Those are all crazy risky ventures. Um, so when you let's talk about insurance versus patients. So what would you like to see? 0 to 30 days, 31 to 60 days, 61 to 90 days, over 90. What do you like to see there?
Yeah, I mean, I do.
Because if someone told you they had 2 months accounts receivable, but it
Mhm.
was 100% in the 0 to 30 days, that's very different than if someone said I have 1 month's account receivable, but it's all in the over 90.
Right.
Because if it's all in
Right.
the over 90, what but if they haven't paid in 90 days, what's the chance that you're
Oh
going to
my
get your money?
gosh. Very low,
How
right?
low?
It just drops down like a rock. I mean, from 30 to 60 to 60, 90, you can look at almost any aging report on any practice in America, and you're going to see a dramatic decline. Insurance companies should reimburse fairly quickly. It's a much more simple process than medical insurance, for example. It's very clean. You've got some ways, definitive ways on filing. So really, insurance should be paid very quickly in 30 to 45 days. And then really the key on the patient side is not to have AR at all. You wrote a great article. I'm just going to reference it. Where's my money, man? I mean, you can't go to Walmart, walk out with your groceries and not pay. Why is dentistry different? So thinking of things in prophylactic terms, where you want to try to solve the problem before it occurs, that's really the key to maintaining a healthy practice.
So some of it, success is willing to have uncomfortable conversations. I mean, you're a social animal, so you're just hardwired to. We all got to get along. We all got to raise these kids and kill the deer and the elk together, or we're all going to die. So the treatment plan says that when you come in for the crown seat, you're going to pay the other half. So Grandpa shows up and says, "Oh my God, I forgot my checkbook at home."
Right.
What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, I wish there was a silver bullet where you could say this and XYZ would happen every time. People by themselves are infallible creatures, so every situation's different. But if you are carrying accounts receivable, it's nice to have systems in place. If you have some financing products that can help, right, that will help reduce your accounts receivable. And there's some great companies out there, some really big ones, and there's some really small ones. There's a bunch of little ones just popping up that will accept people when the traditional financing will fall through. But having a system in place where you say, hey, if we have a $500 balance, if we want to carry the patient, we feel like it's a good risk, then maybe breaking it down in a series of payments. If you can secure that to a checking account or ACH draft or a credit card, that's ideal, right? Because once the patient leaves and their mouth feels better, they're not in pain, they have what they want, you're really last on their list. So doing everything you can to preventatively solve the problem, I think, is key. And that's really just creating systems. I've seen practices with all different types of systems, and there's really no one size fits all, quite frankly, right? Because an orthodontist is going to run their business a whole lot different than a general dentist or an endodontist or an oral surgeon, for that matter.
So on these finance products, everybody's heard of the big boys, Care
Yep.
Credit, which used to be owned by GE, but I guess GE spun it off, right?
I have no idea on that,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, they've all heard of Care Credit. What are some of these other ones they might not have heard of?
There's a lot of I'm trying to remember. There's so many of them, Howard. I literally cannot keep up. But there's a lot of them that will actually accept checks or credit cards, and they'll actually hit those cards monthly. Those are really the key. There's not one that comes to the top of my mind as being any better than the others, but there's many out there.
Okay. Well, if any of them come to your mind, email them to me, howard@dentaltown.com, and we'll put them in the notes. Um, so over 90,
Mhm.
what do you think about is it worth turning them over to collections? Because there's two Americas, definitely. I mean, there's half of America living in the big cities, and there's half of America living in small towns. I don't know if I was in a small town of 5,000 people, if I'd want to turn Frank over to the collection agency and have to look at him at the Walmart and church and all that. But in Phoenix, I mean, so and then what's the chance you're going to get your money versus just pissing off a guy that you're going to see all the time for the rest of your life? What's
Exactly.
your thoughts on collections?
Yeah, I mean, having a collections approach is a necessary evil for most practices. Now, the key, of course, is to not let it get there in the first place. So if you can be proactive on the front end, then you'll never have to depend on the back end. So if you wait 6 months to a year to turn account over to quote unquote collections, you're going to be disappointed almost all the time, right? The chance of recovery are low. You're going to alienate the patient. They probably won't come back to your practice. It's kind of a lose-lose scenario. So I'm a big proponent of practices working with companies that will have like an early opt-in program where maybe they help contact the patient as your practice, or define some ways that you can bill that person or contact that person internally before it goes there. Collections is really just like pulling teeth. It hurts. No one's happy. The dentist's not happy. The patient's not happy. Anything you can do to solve that problem before it occurs in a prophylactic manner is the way to do it. So collecting before the patient leaves, even trying to get them to pay prior to checkout, even before the procedure is performed, is really a great way on reducing it. If you have to give the patient a little bit of a discount, why not? If you're either going to pay that or you're going to pay a financing company to carry the receivable.
Well,
So
you know what I did for the first 10 years when I was just small and me and what I used to do is I used to figure I'm not going to get the money, and I'm in Phoenix, but I'm in the part of Phoenix south of South Mountain. So 95% of Phoenix is on the other side of this huge mountain park called South Mountain Park, which is a 100 block long. And then I'm south of that in this little sliver called Ahwatukee. And even though we're Phoenix, everybody thinks of it as a separate city. It's like 80,000 people, this huge cul-de-sac. So what I used to do is every Christmas, I figured I don't want to turn them over to collections because they live in this large cul-de-sac. I'm gonna have to see them. It's Spirit of Christmas. So what I do is I write off their balance. I'd put it in a Christmas card, and then I hand address on the Christmas card said, "Hey, 1987 must have been a tough year for you because you didn't pay the 1,500 bucks you owed me or whatever. But hey, it was a rocking hot, amazing year for me. So in the spirit of Christmas, I adjust your balance. All I ask in return is that if you ever need a dentist again, come and see me, and please refer your friends and loved ones." Oh my God, the
it's
first year I
awesome.
did that, I mean, they would say, I mean, they came by, some of them came by crying,
There's so
um, making you pumpkin pies, Christmas cookies, all that stuff like that. And so
mm-hmm.
then I turn, it's counterintuitive. You take someone who's, because what I've noticed from talking to the dental malpractice attorneys that if I owe you 1,500 bucks and I don't want to pay, I got 1,500 reasons of why I don't want to pay. And not one of them's going to be because I'm a loser. I'm not good on my word. I can't get a job. I have spending problems. So they're going to say, well, the crown didn't feel right. The tooth doesn't hurt. I can't chew on it. And I'm going to file a complaint with the board of dental examiners. And,
Mm-hmm.
and so having a Homo sapien wild animal monkey owing you money can go south quick. So
Absolutely.
I just with Christmas, I just write them all off, and then it flip that monkey around to say, oh my God, he's a good guy. I'm going to refer
Yeah.
my two sisters, Sharonda and Simone, to Howie, and he's just a good old boy.
Did you ever find that the relatives didn't pay you because the word got from one to the other that, hey, he'll write it off at the end of the year?
I never experienced that, but that is what economic theory would suggest, and that is why my staff gets so mad when someone would fail
Right.
because I have another huge problem is that if a young boy is going to lose a molar, whatever, I always figure, well, he can get a lawnmower, a weed eater, he can, no big deal. But when the mom would fill the FA and go for the extraction, and it would be a young girl, 16 under, and she'd be sitting there crying, I'd take the FA money for the extraction and then just do the root canal bill and crown. And they were always afraid that this is going to get out all over Guadalupe and everybody's going to
Right.
start playing me on this, but it just never happened. But I just couldn't look. It was just tough for me to be successful and knowing that this 13-year little girl, every time she
Yeah.
smiles, is gonna have a space and it's gonna hurt her self
Yeah.
esteem, and that was just it's tough. It's tough
Yeah,
because
but
we're
part
a
of gold.
business and we're healthcare. We're doctors,
Right.
and we only went to school to use our hands to do surgery to help you.
Right.
Man, it's tough to put on that hat. So my next question is, do you think this is one of the reasons why dentists shouldn't be doing financial arrangements? In your experience, do you think it's better to have the front office support staff talking
Absolutely.
money? Because it's kind of, I imagine if you had a prostate cancer and the doctor would talk about your treatment, then talk about the money, then talk about your chemo, then talk about the terms. It'd be a weird message.
Oh yeah, and I think that the dentist should just focus on what they do best, taking care of the patient. They should have staff that handle that all for them. Because I mean, if you were going to your dentist, would you want them thinking about the money they owed you when they're pulling a tooth? I mean, it just it's just a lose-lose for everybody. Dentists focus in on the clinical art of practicing excellent dentistry. That's what you guys love doing. Focus in on that. Have people that will have those conversations for you. And don't worry about it. You don't want to know. I mean, I would look at your report, but almost any practice, I wouldn't really break it down individual by individual. It can really skew your thinking. There's an interesting article. You brought up a good point about the perception of collections and what that actually means. There's a great article in CNN Money a couple years ago, and I can send your listeners the article, anyone that wants to read it. But
How do they email you for this article? How do they contact you? What's
yeah,
the best way to contact you?
they can email me at arninja at andycleveland.com.
So that AR is for Accounts Receivable Ninja.
Yep.
AR Ninja at andycleveland.com.
You got it. But there's an article that said that 1 in 3 Americans at any point in time have been turned over to collections. Now I'm paraphrasing that, but think about that. So your dentist and your buddies, right? You guys all make an excellent income. You guys deserved it. You've worked hard to get through school. You've taken on all this debt. You deserve to make a good income, and you've pointed out very much how that's gone down the last few years. I'd like to get your opinion on that. But the point is, it's much more cataclysmic to the dentist thinking of turning the patient over, right? It's a scary concept because you're in a different world. But your average red-blooded American in our country has been turned over to collections for something else: cell phone, house payment, car payment, and it's really just another day in their life. So I like to kind of bring that to light to give perspective that a dentist shouldn't feel guilty on getting some type of help at some point, because really, if you don't collect your money, you may not be able to help anybody. You can't pay your overhead. You can't pull teeth. You can't, give people that winning smile. You can't make them healthy anymore. So now, all these ties between total body health and oral health really is elevating your entire profession. So I don't know if that helps some of your listeners wrap their head around what it means to actually utilize a company to help you. But it's very, very common in America. Everyone else does it except for the dentist. You guys are the last ones to get paid.
Now, are you familiar with Bruce Baird down in Texas?
I've heard.
Yeah, he's starting to. It's kind of funny. When you've been out of school for 30 years, you just keep seeing the same pitch come over and over. Like when I got out of school, there was big corporate orthodontic centers of America. There's a dozen on NASDAQ. They all went under. They're gone 10 years. Now they're all back. I'm sure a lot of them are going to have the same fate. But when we got out of school, all the dentists were carrying the money. And
Yep.
so everybody was carrying the money, and you're part of the dental management, the Academy of Dental Management Consultants, and all the consultants got out there and said, "Dude, don't carry your money. You're not a bank. Let Chase do that. Let Wells Fargo. Let Care Credit." So everybody got out of it. Well, now
Right.
Bruce Beard, who's one of the biggest innovators, is saying, it's a whole different world out there with information about if some guy shows up at your office named Andy Cleveland, there's software to find out, is this guy just get out of jail? Does he have a credit
Right.
history? And he's going back now, and he's starting to carry money. What do you think of Dennis carrying money?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a viable option if you really want to help the patient, right? And you want to, not everyone lives in Beverly Hills. So you want to help the lost soul that has been a neglector for years. Maybe they can't afford multiple thousands of dollars today, and maybe they don't get approved by the credit company. A lot of these companies really look at the upper tiers of the credit scores for acceptance, and then of course the dentist is going to pay a hefty fee anyway. Now they will get their money very quickly, but there is a pretty significant cost associated with that. So I don't see the harm in carrying some accounts receivable. The key is obviously not to depend on that to keep your doors open, right? That should be a little more of a discretionary type fund. You want to at least be able to have some predictable revenue coming in, but why not? You're going to help the patient. If you take the right steps, maybe you take a credit card or a bank draft, you're going to charge it on a certain day every month, then why not? It's a win-win. And then you get a patient for life. Maybe they've been to 3 other dentists and they just wanted the money and they wouldn't work with the patient. So I think there's an art there that you could arguably create some patient loyalty by helping the patient. What's your thought on that? I mean, if someone doesn't have the money, do you turn them away?
Well, we do because the reason these kids come out of school $350,000 of student loans is because someone gave them $350,000 of credit. I mean, there's 2 dental schools in Phoenix Valley. There's one in Glendale, Midwestern. There's one in Mesa, Arizona, AT Still. And every time I go over to that school to lecture to the students, I mean, my God, it's the nicest car lot in town.
Right.
I mean, if I go over to any of these elementary schools and high schools, I don't see any cars like that.
Right.
I was talking to some kid the other day. He's all whining about how much student loans going to stuff. And then when we walked out of the restaurant back to the car, he was driving a Tesla. Dude, that's $100,000. And they talk about their cruises for spring break.
Right.
So my thinking is the fact that, okay, we live in America. I got 4 boys. Banks like Chase and Wells Fargo were sending them credit card applications when they were 10 years old. So I'm always thinking, okay, you live in the richest country in the world, and Chase and Wells Fargo, the big boys, no one will give you a credit card. So you want some short, fat, bald dentist who studied root canals for 8 years to give you credit? So I always think, man, and then and that's what I used to always also do. Is my best financing for years always was I had in the same parking lot. First it was God, what was the name of that? Valley National Bank. Then it got bought by Union Bank or Nations Bank. Now it's Chase Bank, and they had the same branch manager there for 20, 30 years. So I knew her on a first name, and we would call her up and we'd say, "Well, go over and talk to her because we need, to do all this is 3,800 or 4,000, and let's see if she'll give you a credit card for $4,000, and then she'll pay us, and if she would call back and say, "No way, this guy's a disaster," then I'm like, "Well, I'm sure as hell glad I didn't carry it." And I do think when I study and read articles about what bills they pay first, they always pay their car payment and their cell phone first.
Yep.
And they always pay their family members never. And, and then the dentist is really low on the totem pole, especially when I can go find another dentist on every corner. I'll just never go back to that guy. So, I don't like to extend credit.
Yeah. I don't blame you. I mean, I think it's different for each person. If you were to get out of dental school today and you opened your doors the first day, would your thinking be any different? You might just say, hey, I just need to get people in my chairs. I just need patience. So maybe you do take some more risks there. But if you're in a position, just like a fee for service practice, that's the ideal business model. But you don't see that many fee for service practices out there, right? Because a lot of them just can't afford to do it.
Well,
So
82% of them take PPOs, and only about 3%, 1 to 3% max take no insurance. And those guys are almost always the only cat in town of about 5,000 or less, or 2,500 or less, and they just don't have to. Or they're in a town of like 8,000, and there's 8 dentists, but 7 of them have gone through every one in the town, and they all want to go to Mr. Good, and he's
right,
got his mastership in the Academy of Everything, and he can do it after 10, 20, 30 years. But the way I see it is this: according to the ADA, average overhead is 65%. So that's 2/3.
yep,
So, and then you pay the doctor. The doctor always says, well, my overhead's 65%. I make 35%. Well, they mix their wages getting paid for being a dentist in that market with
hmm
profit dollars from having capital employed in a dental office like Heartland Dental might, or Aspen, or Pacific Dental. So when you go to these offices that are 65% overhead, the dentist in that area are usually worth about 25% of production. So you got 65 and 25, so you're 70, 80, 90. So they're usually making about 10% net income. So if I do $1,000 crown and I don't get paid for it,
yep,
I have to do $10,000 of dentistry to net that 10% to
yep,
pay that $1,000 crown. Because when you do that crown, you still paid your rent, mortgage, equipment, build out computer, insurance, front office, dental assistants,
yep,
hygienists. The associate doctor got their 25%. I mean, everybody got paid but you. So,
right,
and let's say you didn't have any associates, just say it was just your time. Well, then average overhead 65%. That means every time someone doesn't pay you $1,000 for a crown, that means the profit you made on the next 2 crowns went to pay for the crown that you
sure,
did for free, because you still
just
had the
a
lab
fee,
bill. Yeah. So
right,
so the bottom line is, no deal is better than a bad deal, and I would rather. It's like these PPO plans. I mean, you go in there and do the math of these dental offices, and they got 6 to 18 PPO plans, and you
hmm
do the math, and you finally get the cost of what this dentist and the operatory cost, and you look at the schedule, and you say, okay, based on these PPO fee schedules, on about 5 of these plans, when you go in there and you do 2 fillings for this fee, at the end of 1 hour, you actually lose 20, 30, 40, $50.
yep,
And then you cancel those plans, and then the dentist stands around and says, well. Now tomorrow, I have nothing scheduled from 2 to 4. It's like, well,
right,
dude, would you rather do 2 fillings and lose $50, or go shopping?
right,
Why don't you just run to Kohl's and see and take $50 and say, hey, instead of doing
sure.
2 fillings to lose 50, I'm gonna spend my grant at Kohl's and go see if there's something at Kohl's for $50. So
Yeah.
it's a mindset.
But you have so many other things that you have to worry about to being a dentist. You have all these systems. You have marketing and recall and all these other things. What if you just took that time and dedicated it elsewhere? So a lot of it is, delegating your time and energy to things that are profitable. And chasing the dollar is one of the least profitable tasks I think that you can get into. So yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with you there.
So, how do you make a living? What are you doing for Dennis? To my homies listening to you right now, who's a perfect fit for you? Who should be giving you money to solve what problems?
Yeah, so I do a bunch of different things, Howard. I work with various companies that all serve dentistry. And so I do work in the accounts receivable space. But one of the things I've really taken a lot of pride in is connecting dentists to services that they actually need. So you have this hub, Dental Town, which is such a great resource. I've been, you know, just diverge off this quickly. Dental Town's been great for me personally because I've learned so much about different facets of dentistry, not the clinical part, but the practice management. So what you do is a great service. But I connect dentists to services that they actually need. So I am connected with the Academy of Dental Management Consultants, which I know you've had some people on from our organization. They're all top tier dental consultants. but I've also affiliated myself with other companies that can basically fill gaps in the practice. Because, the average dentist out there, when they need, let's say, a marketing company, they just get on Google and then, they call up three people and then they all say the same thing. Hey, we're the best. We're going to make you lots of money, yada, yada, yada. And you're kind of left at your own devices. So I take a lot of pride in connecting dentists to really high quality partners that they can actually trust.
Wow. So are you an employee of the Academy of Dental Management Consultants, or you just work with them a lot?
Yeah, I'm a member.
So are all their members dental consultants? Do they have any members that are dentists, hygienists, office managers?
Yeah, we're all consultants. So we're all in different areas of practice management. And there's so many niches in practice management now. It used to be, hey, I'm a quote unquote dental consultant, and you were kind of this holistic approach. And now you'll see there's all these different types of dental consultants. There's hygiene consultants, and there's people that just focus on certain areas of the practice. So there's no one size fits all. Some people like to go the traditional route where, you have someone in the office for a year and you're going to pay a pretty penny, but you're going to get a great return. And sometimes you can just fill the gaps with things that you need in your business. There's a lot of Band-Aids out there that are non-traditionally oriented that can really help your business. So I like to talk to dentists to figure out, what their challenges are, and then try to connect them to the correct partner to help their practice. And so a lot of times they say, well, hey, I need more patients. Well, when you talk to the dentist after a while, you realize, well, maybe you don't need more patients. Maybe you need to focus more on how you're checking out your patients that you do have, right? If you're letting money walk out the door, why don't you just focus on training your staff to learn how to ask for money rather than chasing on the back end or trying to continually get new patients that maybe are just coupon shoppers that never become long-term patients. So there's a bunch of different ways that I can actually help a practice owner.
To our listeners, what would you say is the difference in the ADMC, the Academy of Dental Management Consultants, and the ADOM, the Academy of Dental Office Managers? Is that kind of like the American Dental Association and the Academy of General Dentistry? Is there a difference, or not really, just two different clubs, or do they have a different focus, or?
Yeah, I think they're both great organizations, right? ADOM is for office managers, helping them, right, get the skill set, the education. Then you've got that CE element that's tied in there. The ADMC is truly a group of dental consultants and it's really a great organization because it's a very open architecture where we share information, we connect each other. We talk amongst ourselves, and so we're all there to help the dentist. And so we leverage that group capability in helping our individual businesses and helping each other. So it's a great resource. I cannot go on enough about how great the ADMC is. So any dentist looking for a consultant, that's a great place to look.
Yeah, and it was founded by Charles T. Kidd, who started Trojan.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got out of school in '87, that was just you had to have Trojan to find out what insurance is going to pay, what's covered, and it was everybody always thought they couldn't talk about it because it was named after the same name as the most popular condom in America. And I remember talking to these people saying, does it really have to be named Trojan Professional Services? Is Trojan still around?
Yeah, they are still around. I don't know that much about them, but I know they've been a mainstay for years in the dental industry. Have you been keeping up with all the virtual dental insurance office managers? Have you been keeping an eye on that, Howard?
Yeah. What do you think about it?
I think it's a really cool concept where you basically have someone remoting in at night. So you just take the insurance element right out of the practice. And it's all done at night so that your staff that you do have is actually more focused on the patient, giving them a great experience, right? They're not talking to someone about, not talking on hold with an insurance company, ignoring someone at the sliding window. It's really a great way to start off right. I know some practices that are killing it using companies like this because they don't have to worry about insurance. They collect it, but it's all filed remotely and is all followed up on insurance professionals. They don't have to worry, if their office manager's sick or maybe they're playing on Facebook or whatever happens, it's all done remotely.
Well,
It's
a
really
business
cool.
has to decide, is this our core competency or is this not? And the bottom line is, does this feature add value to your patients? And that's the bottom line. Like for instance, I'll give you a non-dental example. I have Dental Town magazine. I could
Hmm.
buy a printer to print the magazine, but what would happen in a
Right.
printing of a magazine that would make it a better read? I mean, that has nothing to do. So you outsource the printing and you
Sure.
focus on deals. So many times a patient is trying to check in or trying to check out, or someone's on the phone, and you have one of your best employees on the phone verifying insurance that
Right.
Obi-Wan Kenobi could do, artificial intelligence could do. You could outsource this to another player, and we're starting to see a lot of genius concepts. I mean, a lot of these dentists have a hard time managing their own office while they're standing inside of it 40 hours a week, and then they're
Hmm.
looking at some of these other dentists like Rick Workman managing 1,500 Heartland Dental Services, and
Yeah.
he's pulling in a lot of stuff from Central in Effingham, Illinois, calling, confirming. If the phone rings 3 times at your office and no one picks it up, it rolls over to a live human in Effingham, Illinois, instead of it going to voicemail. These dentists, while they're doing a root canal, they have no idea what
Hmm.
percent of their phone calls were answered. They have no idea how many went to voicemail. They have no idea how many of the voicemail were ever returned. And
Right.
and the sophisticated dentist says on their website, which should be mobile friendly, should say, if you're an existing patient, call this number. But if you're a new patient, call this number, because they have a hotline for new patients. Because if you're my buddy for 10 years, I got
Mhm.
you. You're my
Right.
buddy. But
Right.
when some stranger's calling that's never called the office before, my God, I need to get that, because if she goes to voicemail, I'm just gonna call the next dentist that came up on the
Sure.
Google search
They're gone.
for where you're at, and so it's business is business. So you're in Abbeville, South Carolina.
Yeah.
Is that a
Yeah.
suburb of something, or is that the whole kit and caboodle?
Yeah, I mean it's a small town in the upstate, which is outside of Greenville, South Carolina. I don't know if you've ever watched the Julia Roberts movie "Sleeping with the Enemy," where they
Yes.
lined up the cans and the husband or the boyfriend was trying to harm her. He was a little OCD. You remember that?
Yeah.
That was our claim to fame. That movie was filmed in Abbeville, South Carolina. It's basically a two-stoplight type town, very safe environment to bring up my family. I have 2 little girls, so it's just a great place to bring them up and have a nice existence, honest existence.
So what kind of services are you hooking dentists up with?
Pretty much anything that they would need, anything from a collection company. If they need help with recare, if they need help, there's online scheduling now. You brought up scheduling. There's some really cool companies out there now who will allow the patient to interface with the practice without even picking up the phone. And they can actually schedule their appointment online, which when you think about it, Americans are so busy, they don't want to have to call the dentist's office and they're at lunch or the line's busy, then they just call the next. So I really make an attempt to stay very connected with these types of companies, marketing, direct mail, website, kind of the gamut. I'm not a traditional practice management consultant. I'm more of a connector.
Interesting. The dental. What do you call yourself? You're the dentist, the dental connector.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could call ourselves a lot of things, but yes, I do like to connect. I take a lot of satisfaction out of that. There's so many people out there, they just don't know what to do. All they want to do is work on someone's mouth. That's what they're trained to do. That's what they love to do. Many of them don't like the practice management stuff. So I love it. I think it's fun. I like to actually help a practitioner, when you finally realize results and they're happy, it just makes everyone's life better. And really, referrals are the key in your business, but they're also the key when you're servicing dental practices. So do very little traditional advertising. It's all word of mouth. It's kind of all under the radar.
You know, that online scheduling brings up a new, a very interesting consumer thing, and economics. You know, they're giving away a lot of Nobel prizes for people mixing economics with psychology, human behavior. A lot of people actually prefer to do their banking online and or use an ATM machine than deal with a teller. It's amazing. You see in grocers now where a lot of them are rolling out self-checking, and I'm sitting there, an old grandpa, thinking, well, why the hell are you doing all that shit when this lady here will scan it all up and bag it up? But there's just a lot of people who just find it stressful and annoying to deal with another monkey, and they'd rather pay their bills online. They'd rather schedule online. They'd just like to do it without any human interaction. And what humans tend to do is projection. So they think whatever they think is what 7.5 billion humans alive today think, and the 100 billion humans that all lived and died before you were born. And the bottom line is, just because you think it doesn't mean anybody thinks it. And then on top of that, you got four different generations thinking. You got senior
Yep.
citizens, baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, and there's a lot of evidence showing how they think profoundly different on all these
Sure.
issues.
Oh
And
yeah.
online scheduling is just going to be huge.
Yeah,
And I have so many of my friends that you can be at dinner and they'll oh my god, I forgot to pay my bill, and they go to their iPhone and make three payments. No
yeah.
paper, no check, no nothing. You know, just it's an interesting world.
A lot of practices are doing the same thing on their own websites, Howard. There's technology where, a patient, maybe they forgot to pay the bill, and, they work. So they don't have time to work around your schedule. It's 9 o'clock at night. Whoops, I forgot. You can log into your website, to the practice's website, and pay their bill online. Much easier than having a difficult conversation, especially if you're past due. A lot easier to just make that payment online. Then we just takes the human emotional element right out of the equation.
So you have a lot of contacts at the Academy of Dental Management Consultants. What do they think is going on right now in the dental industry with corporate dentistry, PPOs? What are they seeing in the when they get around and talk about the dental industry? What's on their mind?
Gosh, I hear so much. I mean, you hear everything from they're taking over the world to, to the flip side. But from what I've read, corporate dentistry, whatever, quote unquote, whatever that, how you classify that, is growing. And I think that's a pretty undeniable trend. And so I think it's important, when you think about it, a lot of these individual practices just don't have the tools that the big guys have. Right? They don't have the systems in place. They don't have the access to technology. So that's something I'm passionate about, bridging that gap, trying to give the same similar tools to the practice owner that, the big boys would actually have, at their practices. And I think that separates a lot. Wouldn't you think that, the big ones really just have better systems in place than the individuals? Wouldn't you agree?
Right, it's a mindset. Some kids come out of school and they never, ever, ever have thought once about location, marketing, customer service, HR, leadership, nothing like that. And they basically come out of school like a very highly trained engineer, and
Right.
they just want to sit at Intel and work on their programming engineering project called a human tooth. And but other people are hardwired. They love the game. It's a lifestyle. They just love it, and it's hard to see. It's hard to tell. I cannot notice a difference between the boys and the girls. It seems like that doesn't tell you any data on whether they want to stay home, because back in the day they said, oh, the girls all want to stay home and have kids. Yeah, look
Right.
at the birth rates are plummeting. They were
Right.
5.5 kids in 1950. It's 2.3 kids now. It's under one in Japan. It's 0.9. 1 in 4 baby boomers had no children. It's going to be 1 in 3 millennials have no children. And then
Wow.
some of these moms that do have two kids, they're hardwired to be super mom. I mean, it's just just no problem running a dental office and raising two girls, and there's just no problem. So I don't know. I think it might be 50-50. That's my bet. I think, and the reason I keep going back to that is because I kept looking at the other sovereign professions of medicine and law, and I look at lawyers. Those guys started corporate law decades before dentistry did it, and they did it successfully. And basically, for 3 decades, half the lawyers say, "Dude, I just want to work in a firm. I don't want to deal with the business of
Hmm.
law." And the other half say, "I ain't playing in a firm and politics and all that bullshit. I
Right.
want to do it my own way."
So,
So the lawyers, who are absolutely crazier than dentists on any day of the week, lawyers are crazier than drunk dentists. And they split up 50-50. So that's my best guess where dentistry's headed. When I'm in those dental schools and I'm talking to kids, half of them. But when you say corporate, though,
yeah,
that doesn't mean the 35 chains that have 50 or more locations. That just means I'm an employee somewhere. It may be an employee for one person. It might be a group practice of 3, 7. I think the most successful corporate dentistry I'm seeing is one layer corporate dentistry, where you go up to Sioux Falls, you go up to these towns, and some office said, you know what? If we had, instead of just being one dentist in this town, if we had a north, south, east, west, if we had 4 offices, we could have a headquarters to
hmm,
have one person like you focusing on account receivables, and another person on marketing, and another one, a comptroller with a
yep,
couple bookkeepers to know our costs, someone in HR doing all the employee evaluations, and that one layer corporate,
yep,
usually 4 to 8 to 10 locations.
yep.
Gosh darn, they are crushing it.
Purple.
But you
Yeah.
start getting that second layer where, oh, well, now we have another layer in
Yep.
Effingham, or we have
Yep.
another layer and they take this much.
Right.
Or the other side where I'm just one solo man in Salina, Kansas.
Yep.
I think the sweet spot is maybe 4 to 8 locations. I really
Sure.
do. And that's what's going to employ half the dentists in America.
Yeah, I mean, if
Um,
you get too big, we've all had experiences with the big companies. You know, you call your phone and you're on hold for 20 minutes. You can't get a hold of anyone that can make a decision. I mean, there's pros and cons. I think that the independent dentist has a lot of advantages that the corporate dentists don't have, right? It is their show. They have skin in the game. It is their business. The quote unquote corporate, maybe they have a new associate coming in to learn the business for a year or two, and then they run and start up their own practice. So I think there's pros and cons to each. I think the independent business owner can do a lot to create a lot of patient loyalty that's very difficult in a corporate environment. Although the corporate environment, I think, has a much better hold on controlling cost and keeping things low. But are those the types of patients you want in the first place? So I think there's pros and cons to each, but it's undeniable that corporate dentistry is growing like crazy. So it's really important that our practice owners really understand even if you have a bad system in place, it's still better than winging it and not having anything at all. Um, so that first day, any new dentist on the line, making sure that you know how you're going to handle patients when they walk out the door. Um, are you going to ask for the money before the treatment's performed, or maybe give them a discount to, get incentivize them to pay quicker? Training the staff how to ask. I'm amazed at how many offices that I've talked to that don't ask the patient for the money. They literally just walk out the door. And that's the doctor's profits going right out the window. I mean, you work so hard to earn it, and you got to have the right person that can connect with the patient, ask for the money, work with the patient, and do it in a very non-threatening but effective way.
I think that when the one thing about dentistry is, Mayo Clinic, people go to the Mayo Clinic and they trust that brand because the Mayo Clinic brothers set up a system, and people buy into the fact that I trust the Mayo Clinic. That's
Mhm.
not how the corporate dental offices were set up. When
Right.
you look at all these corporate dental offices like Pacific or Heartland or any of those guys, the consumer isn't reading the story of the founder who's a dentist, and all these dentists follow the protocol. So I
Mhm.
don't see a single brand in 2 or more states where the consumer's saying, I want to get my breast cancer treated at Mayo because I trust Mayo. And I know when I buy an Apple, a computer, a pair of jeans, I know what I'm buying. But dentistry is invisible. They don't understand it.
Right.
It's like I grew up with 5 sisters playing Barbie dolls. So I only go to the dealer who sold me my car because if he wants to have a conversation with me about my transmission or my lifter, I don't know shit about any of that stuff. I mean, I was dressed in Barbie dolls till I was 12. I don't know. I don't know cars, but I
Right.
trust my dealer who sold me my Lexus in 2005, which
Hmm.
was 12 years ago and 140,000 miles. When the engine light goes on, I trust him. And when I pull up and he comes out and he's got a uniform and I trust him, and he says, "Okay, Howard, this is the
Yep.
deal, and it's gonna be $800." I just say every time, "Okay."
Sure. He's
I
never
don't.
said you wrong in the past.
Well, I don't know because I trust him because I wouldn't know if my transmission needed whatever the hell whatever's going on. But I think that dentistry is very complex because when you say I have 2 cavities, I don't know. You said you saw them on the X-ray. I can't read X-rays. When
Right.
you say they're $250 each, I don't know what a filling should cost. When you say a root canal, they don't know that a root canal in the front tooth might only be 300 and the back tooth 600, and they don't know that one has one canal, I mean, it's all trust based, and
Sure.
that's why I've noticed that every single time a dentist says to you, Andy Cleveland, you need 2 fillings, and then he leaves the room, they turn to the dental assistant and ask trust
Yep.
questions.
Yep.
Is that
Should I do
true?
this?
Do,
Right.
do I really need him? Do you let Andy work on you? Did these other people work on here? How come the last time I got my teeth cleaned, that hygienist, how come she quit? They never
Right.
think, oh, she got fired. How come
Right.
she quit? My sister, she had a filling done and it turned into a root canal. Is that going to happen? I mean, so it's all invisible. It's all trust. I don't see a single corporate chain that's focusing on building a trusting brand.
Right.
I think some could do it. I think if I was Rick Workman, I would be telling the Rick Workman story 24 hours a day. That here's this good old boy in little Effingham, Illinois, who wanted to do a better system and do dentistry, blah, blah, blah. I just don't see it.
Yep.
Well, anything else you want to talk about, Andy?
I mean, I could talk to you for hours, Howard, if we had the time.
Well,
This,
we'll talk more on Dental Town.
okay. Yeah, and I want to just again thank you for having me on, and I really am a great fan of your podcast section. You've done a tremendous job on getting people from all different walks of life, getting them and giving something very accessible to these practice owners, these dentists coming out of school. It's such an awesome resource. I can't tell you how many people I've encouraged to get on your site. But it's also very valuable for people that work in dentistry, right? We're all in our niches and nests. We have our own little lives, and it's really helpful to learn about other areas of dentistry I've just never thought about before. So I want to thank you from like a dental practice professional out there, in the game every day. I've learned so much from your podcast section. It's been awesome. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And I held my ground. That's the difference between Dental Town and Ortho Town. The orthodontist on Dental Town, they wouldn't post. All the other specialties did. The oral surgeons, periodontists, they all posted. But the orthodontists won their own deal. And I said, oh, okay, because they didn't post from '98 to 2005. So after 7 years of not posting, I finally granted their wish, gave them Ortho Town, where I'm not even allowed to go on it because I'm not an orthodontist. But one of the biggest questions was they said you had to be an orthodontist. I said, but what if you spend your whole life only working in dental offices? Like you
Mm-hmm.
sell orthodontic brand, you're an orthodontic manufacturer. Let's say you're a dental consultant who only does orthodontists. If all the orthodontists on there are saying, the problem with this product is it's blue and it needs to be red. Well, if the orthodontic manufacturer doesn't see that, how are they supposed to know? Let
Right.
them on there, and they hold their ground. It's been from 2005 to 2017. They say, hell no, we don't want anybody on there but orthodontics. But when I started Dental Town, so many dentists would get mad at me in '98, '99, and 2000. They're saying, hey, this guy got on and he's not a dentist and he's trying to sell gloves or isolite or whatever. And it's like,
Right.
oh, so well, what's wrong with that? well, he's just trying to sell something. I'm like, well, what do you volunteer? What do you
Right.
do? Free dentistry in your community? Pretty sure on a post I read of yours, you do $1 million and take home 250. So how come it's okay for you to make money, but
Sure.
it's not okay for all the 500 companies who make the stuff that if you took away 500 dental companies, my homies are sitting on a rug with a bunch of stuff they bought at Home Depot, and we don't look like fancy doctors that anybody wants to see or be proud of. We look like quacks. And I love that when the dental consultants are on there answering questions, the dental manufacturers can read the post, and I think if you work full time in dentistry, we're all in this together. And there's
Absolutely.
2 million, think about this, there's 2 million dentists on earth. 10% of them are in the United States. There's 211,000 in the United States. There's 150,000 in China. There's 150,000 in Brazil. But there's 2 million in the world, and they employ 10 million people. So there's 12 million people that work in it. It's not just about dentists. I mean,
Right.
dentists might be the quarterback, but they need wide receivers and running backs and tight ends and a defensive line,
Sure.
and they need this entire infrastructure. And to sit there and say that it's all about dentists is kind of silly and egomaniac and narcissistic. And these dentists need to listen a lot more to their patients, their hygienists, their assistants, the dental manufacturers. Same thing in the supply person.
Sure.
That rep, that supply person coming in selling you your supplies is one of the biggest dental connectors in your entire deal. I mean,
Yeah,
the
take
the
advantage of it.
oh, the only reason, and in fact, when my dental supply, people say, well, who do you buy your supplies from? I mean, I bought supplies from Patterson, Shine, Benco, but I don't like to tell anybody who I buy my supplies from because I buy from Val. And if Val changes jobs, I don't give a shit who's backfilling orders because my value with my supply person is, hey, on this file, this endo file, do you know anybody who uses this? And she either does off the top of her head, and she says, no, but I'll find out, or just or I'll say, I've been using this lab in the backyard for 15 years, and the last three didn't fit. Is this me, or have you heard anything about this lab? And she's, oh my god, the owners,
Right.
fell apart, blah blah.
Yep.
You call yourself the dental connector. The person that places the most implants always buys them from a human in their city. They don't buy them
Absolutely.
online from Russia and Israel and China because they're half the price. They have
Mm.
a buddy who sits there, who they can call and say, I'm worried about this case. You know what? Let's meet Frank at the Waffle House tomorrow. Your
Yep.
first patient's date. Let's have breakfast at the Waffle House. Bring the X-rays. I know Frank will love it. He's been dying to meet you. They're just connectors, and
Yep.
everybody buying implants from a human in their backyard goes from zero to placing 10 a month. They just always get there. And
Sure.
everybody that doesn't have a human relationship in their backyard, 90% of them place two or three or four and fall through the cracks. They never get it done. It's a business is a human game. It's a human relations game between the man in the mirror, your team, and your customers. And you got to get all three of them right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have all these resources at your disposal. Utilize them to your advantage. So, yeah, absolutely. It seems like it's a thing in past. Is Amazon, are they still getting into the dental biz? Is that something that has been growing?
Well,
Heard
what
much
we know
about.
about Amazon is the first time I've ever seen or heard they had a big booth at the Greater New York meeting. And I know they signed up with the American Dental Manufacturers, the DTA, Dental Trade Association. They've been sending a couple of boys there for the last 3 years, making contacts. But it's going to be one of those deals where it's a very stressful situation because the big distributors like Patterson, Shine, Benco, Burkhart, they say to the big people like 3M and Ivoclar and that Danaher that you got to sell through us. You can't sell on Amazon.
Right.
And if you do, then our 1,000 reps on the field aren't going to be pushing your product. So then you got that. But then when you go into Amazon, who's selling their generic products online? Shine. So Shine has their generic products on
I didn't know
Amazon,
that.
but won't let any of their customers, their big players, put their stuff. So what I think it's going to be is I think it's going to be when everybody's afraid, but when the first person jumps into the pool, it'll be like lemmings in the water. They'll all jump after, but everybody's waiting for that big bird to jump, and it's got to be someone huge. It's got to be like
Yeah.
Ivaclair, 3MSB, Danaher. If one of those big boys jumps in, the other two will be naked and in the pool in an hour.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to watch. But again, I don't care. I mean, I don't see the value of paying a dental assistant $20 an hour to shop online to save 12 cents on gauze. I mean,
Right.
I don't see supplies as my cost. I mean, if you really think your problem is supplies, you don't even get the game.
Right.
So here's the real game. The real game is that three strange people call your office who's never been in as patients, and your front office only converts one in the chair. So
Right.
you
That's
just
the
lost
problem.
2/3 of your business while your
Yep.
dental assistant's on Amazon saving money on
Right.
gauze.
Makes
And then
no
when
sense.
they come in, the average treatment plan acceptance for the United States of American general dentist is 488. It's so we'll round it up, give them a break, $500. And you go show that average patient to any clinician who's gone to Pankey, Coyce, Spear, Dawson, and there's, $2,000 worth of dentistry in there. And
Yep.
you only either diagnosed or could only present or could only sell or finance 500. So, if you're going to save money on supplies, I think you should go to a course on how to put lock boxes over all your thermostats because you got one woman in menopause
Right.
fighting over with the anorexic on where to put the temperature to save money on
Yeah.
electricity. I got dentists that are thinking about going off the grid and putting solar panels on the roof. It's like, really? That's where you're going to make your money?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I can just call my utility company and pay extra to have all my electricity just come from SRP's solar fields out here in Arizona. So if I
Mhm.
want to pay like 10% more on my electric bill just to be off the grid, do that. Because putting solar panels off is not a good use of capital, but putting an extra operatory, at
Sure.
least at least half the receptionists in America can't even convert a call to a patient because they don't even have a chair they can throw them in. I
Right.
mean, I'd get an extra operatory. I'd get a digital phone system. I'd start taping your front office calls. I'd start seeing how many calls
Good.
come in to get one butt in the chair. I'd start
Yep.
looking at your treatment plan presentation, your installment credit finance. I'd start looking at all that. And the last damn thing I would care about is how much
Oh,
I'm paying
right.
3M SB for Impergum. I
Yep.
really don't care.
Pinching pennies to step over dollars.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It's a crazy game. All right. Well, hey, Andy Cleveland, thank you so much for taking an hour of your life and spending it today with my homies. It was very much appreciated.
I enjoyed it, Howard. Thank you very much, and the best to you in 2017.